Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour pregame kickoff. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills guys, presented by the Cover One Sports Network. And listen, the Buffalo Bills are smart. All right, we got 2 games left to go. And you never take an opponent lightly. So the Buffalo Bills pregame strategy actually, I think, started yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, Dave. I'm sure you did. But the Buffalo Bills made sure, Stephon Diggs, Reed Ferguson, they made sure that there were wings waiting for the Atlanta Falcons in their hotel. Is that just the Buffalo Bills being nice, or is that a little bit of a pregame strategy?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both.
I usually when I eat wings, it's 15, 10 to 20 wings at a time. And about 24 hours later, I'm still feeling the effects of said wings. Now, I am not a finely tuned athlete like some of these guys, but I hope they're not wearing white pants at Atlanta today.
Depends on the sauces, right? Depends on the sauces. If you get that those super hot ones that really can mess with your stomach, maybe they give them that.
Mike Davis, he caused quite a stir this offseason when he signed with Atlanta. Like, one of his first tweets was Atlanta has the best wings. And then he immediately came out yesterday and said, I take back everything I said. So there is one piece of drama and storyline coming into the game out the window. No longer the Bills defensive players no longer have to have it out for Mike Davis on behalf of the rest of us from Buffalo. But seeing those wings yesterday, man, was brutal, because being outside of Western New York myself, just like you, I don't know what the wing game is like in North Carolina, but I get these like this hunger for wings every once in a while. I'm like, I need wings so bad. I need wings so bad. And I go out and I get wings, and I find myself really unsatisfied and regretting the decision after I get the wings, because they're not the wings from Bar Bill, or because they're not the wings from Sunny Reds. They are the wings from whatever random pizza place in Arizona. So the struggle is real, and those pictures really made me feel like I need to hop on a plane sometime soon.
Where I live in North Carolina, there are a lot of transplants from the north. So it's like kind of like a melting pot of different areas of the country. A lot of Northerners, a lot of New Yorkers here. So you get the occasional gem of a place here and there, but you really got to seek it out, and sometimes you got to go out of your way to find it. But the problem I have even with some of the places here is the consistency is not always there. So you go one time, okay, it's pretty good. You go back the next time and you're like, well, it's not what it was last time, so now what do I do? And then you try to find another place.
Biggest issue I have everywhere is they are so afraid to undercook the wings, they overcook the wings. It's not even the sauciness of it. It is the actual, like, they just fry it different in Buffalo. I think that, like, everyone there has the culinary aptitude to fry the wings properly. But second thing I wanted to get to today is Lee Smith. Revenge game. This is twice now. He has left the Buffalo Bills, and now he is, this time with a little extra motivation. We traded him for a 7th round pick. We were all laughing at the time. We thought he was going to retire. He's having himself a decent season out there in Atlanta. Should this Lee Smith revenge game be a valid concern?
If the Falcons didn't have Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts,
Hayden Hurst is out. Hayden Hurst is out with COVID.
Fair enough.
No Hayden Hurst today. Could be the Lee Smith show.
Could be a Lee Smith like goal line touchdown.
Oh, 100% they're going to target that motherfucking red zone.
What about Matt Barkley revenge game?
I don't think is Matt Barkley active. I didn't check the Falcons inactive list, but I would say, like, maybe consider double covering Lee Smith in the red zone and leaving Kyle Pitts like ISO'd on somebody, because I think that they're going to be trying to force feed Lee Smith the ball in the red zone. I would watch out for that. But
Matt Barkley is not active.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But last but not least, here in my introductory segments, we've brought up this movie before on this podcast, this video cast, whatever you want to call it. So some people who are new to Cover One might not understand our love for the 2000 classic film Snow Day. We have mentioned this film before, and the line from the movie that I always want to reinforce is that anything can happen on a snow day. Weather is in the 20s today. There is some light snow trickling in, And our guy Nate Geary Sports at WGR. I love Nate Geary. I'm a Nate Geary stan, but he's out here this morning tweeting, if the Bills win the next 2 games, who would you like to see in the wild card game? Anything can happen on a snow day. I don't need anyone on Twitter this morning talking about who we're going to play in the wild card round, or if we still have a shot at the 1 seed. Let's focus on the Atlanta Falcons today, and let's start with the Bills offense versus the Falcons defense. Josh Allen, I put this out on Twitter. I haven't had a chance to check. Check us in the comment section if we're wrong. I think it might be his first snow game in Buffalo. I know he's played obviously in in Wyoming. You got Gabriel Davis and Cole Beasley returning, Emmanuel Sanders out. The O-line shuffling again. We're going to get into that in a second. Mongo and Cody Ford are back. So does that push Ryan Bates back to the bench? And then on the Falcons defense, they have 3 legitimate players at each level of the defense. AJ Terrell, legit, I think the scariest corner we've played this year. Deion Jones, a playmaking linebacker. Grady Jarrett, a very disruptive defensive tackle. They're missing some bodies. Foster Moreau is going to be out today. Jalen Hawkins, their safety, on COVID reserve. 2 of their defensive linemen, and Davidson and Bullard, are on reserve. But this is a Falcons defense with some talented players, but also a lot of weak links, and they are shallow at a lot of positions. So what are your thoughts, your initial thoughts, as you look at the Bills offense versus this Falcons defense?
Yeah, it reminds me of a team that is going through rebuild. I mean, that's what you look at with the Falcons. They've got some talented players at each level, but then you start to really kind of break down the trends they've had this season, right? And while they have Grady Jarrett, they have AJ Terrell, who we liked in the pre-draft process. He's got 2 interceptions this year, but you look at the Falcons, they're dead last in the NFL in total sacks. They only have 16 sacks as a team. They're 9 sacks behind the next closest team, who is second to last in the NFL, in the Philadelphia Eagles with 25. So they have the least sacks in the NFL at 16. To put it in perspective, Miami has the most sacks in the NFL at 45. So this team really struggles to get to the quarterback. They don't really have that kind of pass rushing specialist. They don't really have the horses to get to the quarterback. So yes, while they have some talent, and we'll talk about Grady Jarrett in the middle, they don't really have a pass rush that should strike fear into you if you're the Bills. On top of that, they also only have 9 interceptions on the year. So they're a team that doesn't turn the ball over, or like doesn't take the ball away, I should say. They're one of the lowest turnover differentials in the NFL when it comes to taking the ball away. So to me, if you're looking at this game and you're the Bills and you're like, okay, well, our offense against this defense, like, you should be able to dictate whatever you want to do in this game if you're the Bills offense. So if that's more of what you've done the past couple of weeks, where you've kind of somewhat fed Devin Singletary the ball on the ground and let Josh Allen kind of do his thing, fine. Like, the Bills should be able to pretty much do whatever they want game plan wise on offense. And this Falcons defense, while they do have some talent at each level, they're probably honestly one of the least threatening, least intimidating defenses that we've played all year.
Yeah, and the only concern I have is the last time I think we both felt that way was heading into the Jacksonville game.
Yeah,
So
fair.
That's the only concern that I have. But a quick shout out here to Bradley Gelber of West Turn the Bills Wire with just a great one-liner here. I put out on Twitter, is this Josh Allen's first snow game? And Bradley responded, no, it snows every game in Buffalo. I know it definitely snows every tailgate. It definitely snows every tailgate. For those of you who know where where that kind of tailgate goes down, but that was a great one-liner there for Bradley, so I had to make sure I get it in there. But I'll tell you what,
Bradley's like snarky, but in a nice way. I feel like it's like he has
the
a very
nicest
nice
snark, the nicest snark.
Yes, he's so good with that.
I'm expecting a lot of his own defense today from the Atlanta Falcons, especially with down so many guys. They're going to have our guy. It's our guy, but really the first person to rally behind this player was our boy who we had on the show last week, producer Kendall. Darren Hall is likely going to get the start at the boundary, one of our pre-draft favorites, opposite of AJ Terrell, and then Dean Pease pretty much said that Richie Grant, when active, is going to be their slot corner, even though he was drafted as a safety. So outside of AJ Terrell, they're playing Darren Hall on the boundary, probably up against Gabriel Davis. And then it's Richie Grant, another rookie, in the slot, where Isaiah McKenzie and where Cole Beasley are going to be doing work today. I'm expecting a big day from guys like Dawson Knox, and I'm expecting big days from guys like Cole Beasley. It always seems like when he's sort of discounted, or when people sort of start to forget about him, or people start to talk trash about him, Cole Beasley always has one of those games. I think this is a Cole Beasley game today, and I think Atlanta's going to be heavy in that zone defense. What do you think?
Yeah, it makes sense if you're Atlanta to try to do that. You're going to try to force the Bills to kind of march down the field and put together long drives. And the Bills have hurt themselves with penalties, right, over the course of really the whole season in really bad spots, right? Bills, I think, are one of the top 10 most penalized teams in the league. So if you're Atlanta and you're saying, hey, let's try to do the best we can to make them drive down the field 10, 15-yard drives, the same things we always talk about in trying to make teams like Kansas City or Tampa Bay do that to you, like make them make 10, 15 plays in a row. That's what Atlanta's going to try to do with that zone defense. But Cole Beasley should be able to eat in the middle of that field. So same for Dawson Knox, like you said. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing like them try to mix Diggs in a little bit on the inside today as well. Gabriel Davis really going to be on the outside most of the day.
That would be interesting, because with no Emmanuel Sanders, who do you think would be the other boundary receiver? Would it be Marcus Stevenson? Would it be Jay Kumaro?
No, I mean, it will be Diggs, but I wouldn't mind seeing him mixed in a little bit on the inside. And if you wanted to, in certain situations, you could have Kumaro on one boundary and Davis on the other, and mix Diggs and maybe and Beasley on some four wide sets if you want to go that route. It's going to be really interesting to me, because like what I'm trying to figure out with this Bills offensive game plan today is like, are they going to have like a focus in one area, or are they going to kind of like maybe experiment a little bit, right? Like, this is a game you obviously have to win if you're the Bills, because you need to continue to be in that driver's seat in the AFC East. But is this a chance potentially for you to maybe work on some plays that you've either struggled with in practice or that you struggled with throughout the year, or some new things, some new wrinkles that you want to add in as you head towards this playoff stretch? So you're right about the Falcons probably trying to play zone most of the day, but I will be very interested to see if the Bills maybe get a little experimental today with some plays on offense.
And it's interesting too, because I think Atlanta is going to go heavy zone, especially with how many men they're down. And like you said, they're going to try to make the Bills dink and dunk the ball down the field. And part of what made Josh Allen so great last week, probably the best game of his career, going to go back to that Mina Kimes tweet, where it's like he found a balance between checking the ball down and forcing the football down the field. Like
Definitely.
He finally found that perfect balance of doing a little bit of both, working the football down the field slowly but surely, taking what the defense gives you, but still creating those explosive plays down the field. So you'd like to see more of that continue this week, just because maybe it's an inferior defense to New England, just because the stage maybe isn't as big. You still want to see that same mindset, that same focus from Josh Allen. And we got a comment here from Edward Gibson. He says, no D-line, Motor's going to run wild in the second half and control the game. They are very shallow on that defensive line there in Atlanta, not to mention the fact that they typically, utilize 3 down linemen and then have that 4th and 5th guys as linebackers, guys like Steve Means and guys like, why am I blanking on his name? He's a very good player. The edge rusher they have there came from the Rams. Thank you, Dante Fowler. So they have, those guys sort of on the edge, sort of standing up a little bit. I can see a big day from Devin Singletary, but, I want to see Devin Singletary get 15 to 20 carries this game. Matt Breida is inactive. This seems like the kind of game where they're like, well, it's cold, so we're going to run Zach Moss. Do you think you're going to see like a 50-50 split in this Buffalo Bills, running back room? Or do you think that one guy, hopefully that guy being Devin Singletary, takes the reins and gets a majority of the snaps this game?
Me personally, I feel like Devin Singletary has been the most consistent back, obviously, of the 3 all year. I mean, there's not really any disputing that. And he's had a couple of really good games over his last few, although he hasn't had his best yards per carry games. He's been given a chance, and he's had some very impressive runs. We recall that for one of his first runs last week that Sean McDermott specifically called out, where he on a second down, really essentially carried 3 or 4 guys to a first down. I think the only way you really get to a point where you get, creeping close to that 50-50 split is if it's late in the game, maybe, and you're just trying to salt it away, like we saw against Pittsburgh last year, where Moss kind of came in to be the hammer at the end. But to be honest with you, like, he hasn't really played that role this year because the Bills really haven't necessarily been in that position to do that. They've had some big wins, but like they haven't really used Moss as that hammer outside of a couple games where he got a little bit of run, but that wasn't really as a closer to those games. So that it's interesting to me that we haven't seen that. So unless they come out and they say like we're going to give them kind of alternating series or two series switching, I still expect it to be Devin Singletary for most of the day. Now, if for some reason weather becomes a factor, or maybe Devin Singletary puts the ball on the ground, I don't know, man. To me, it's Singletary most of the day. As Greg says, Singletary's a sneaky hammer, and he showed some pop down at the goal line, right? In getting that touchdown against New England. So it's not like he can't do it. So for me, it's more of Moss is there to be that backup because of the weather, because of the situation. And really, it's Singletary over the trend is it's Singletary over the last few weeks. It's going to be the main guy. So I would be surprised if it's 50-50. I would say that.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to talk about, and then Lone Wolf comes in over in the comment section, says, do we blitz Matt Ryan? We're going to get to the defense in a second here. The last thing I want to talk about, and this topic comes with a trigger warning, because if I don't get what I want here, I'm going to be mad, and I'm probably going to tweet something angry before the game. And in a moment, I'm probably going to go scroll through Twitter to see what the pregame warmups are looking like. Maybe someone in the comment section can help us out here. Ryan Bates better be the fucking left guard. That's all I'm saying, is it better be left to right. Deion Dawkins, Ryan Bates, Mitch Morse, Darrell Williams, and Spencer Brown. To me, you can't preach process. You can't preach process and not start Ryan Bates, a guy who has worked and worked and worked and paid his dues and paid his dues and paid his dues and came out last week, and after rotating between two spots, still had himself a heck of a game against the New England Patriots. You cannot preach process and start John Feliciano or Cordy Ford at left guard today. Am I right here?
You're right, and I would caution to say is Ryan Bates has earned the start. At least at a minimum, he's earned the start this week. To be determined whether he can put two good performances together, right? We talked about in the post game last week, like, was a great day for Ryan Bates, but is that going to be the norm for him? We'd like to think there was a reason he wasn't really playing much this year, right? Like the coaching staff is there at practice every day, watching him practice, watching him play. Is there some element of like, well, maybe it was just one good game? I think from that standpoint, yeah, Rick Bates, that's what they call him. He has earned the start, right? To see if he can put two good performances in a row together. And if he can, at a minimum, put a good performance together against Atlanta, a team that we mentioned other than outside of Grady Jarrett really doesn't have a ton of beef or horses up front, then you got to at least give him that chance. Now, if he flops against this Atlanta defensive line, then you can say, well, maybe it was just one good game last week, right?
Yeah,
so
and
that's where I would just say.
Yeah, and my biggest concern too is number one, John Feliciano has that center flex, so you no longer have the excuse of, well, Ryan Bates is our backup center. Like, you now have a backup who has started games at center for you before in John Feliciano. But knowing that Grady Jarrett is along that Atlanta defensive line, and just knowing John Feliciano's history of in the AFC Championship game getting ragdolled against Chris Jones, in the home opener getting ragdolled against Cam Hayward, I just don't want to see John Feliciano on the football field unless, injuries dictate he needs to be on the football field. I don't think that he's earned it. I don't think he's earned the right to be a starter along this offensive line. And to me, I just think it would be a real shame. And I think it would go against every single piece of the process in which Sean McDermott is preaching if Rick Bates isn't in the starting lineup today. So that'll be super interesting to see as the game kicks off. And Jessica Tennis comes in and says, do you guys think the Bills said screw it and said we're going back to the 2020 offensive lineup after the Tampa game? I think it's more just like Gabriel Davis has established himself. I think that is a matchup today against Darren Hall, where Gabriel Davis could, if you're in a fantasy championship today, I'm starting Gabriel Davis, knowing that AJ Terrell has the ability to lock down Stephon Diggs. Not saying he's going to, but just knowing, I mean, he's Pro Football Focus is number one man. And again, it's just one metric, but he's their number one, like man-to-man cover corner, highest graded cover corner in man-to-man situations, one-on-one, mano-a-mano. So knowing that you have that type of player across covering Stephon Diggs, and you have a rookie in Darren Hall and a size mismatch between Darren Hall and Gabriel Davis at wide receiver number 2, makes you think that even if Gabriel Davis only gets 4 or 5 targets, 2 of them might be in the ends. 2 or 3 of them might be in the end zone today. So that's a really quality matchup. So switching over to the defense now, the Bills defense versus the Falcons offense. The only real update for our defense, the only real notable storyline for our defense, return of Star Lotulelei. So that should be interesting. Eli Anku activated over Vernon Butler. So again, $15 million out the window. But looking at this Falcons offense, they got a veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan who could do some damage. I mean, like we saw what Phillip Rivers did to us in the wild card game last year. Like those older sort of like athletically limited quarterbacks can still do work against this Buffalo Bills defense. They have some players in that offense. Obviously, Mike Davis is a running back who struggled this year. A lot of people thought he was going to be a good fit there. It just hasn't worked out. Cordarrelle Patterson and Kyle Pitts are the 2 alphas that you need to keep your eye on. They got Russell Gage, who's a good young wide receiver. And then that offensive line is a storyline because they haven't been the greatest in the world this year. And it's a ton of 1st and 3rd round picks. It's Jake Matthews, 1st round pick. It's Jalen Mayfield, 3rd round pick. It's Matt Hennessy, 3rd round pick. It's Chris Lindstrom, 1st round pick. And it's Caleb McGarry, 1st round pick. So a lot of draft capital invested into that offensive line and maybe not the production to show for it. What are your thoughts about this Atlanta Falcons offense and how our defense matches up today?
Yeah, obviously, Calvin Ridley's taking care of personal matters, personal health matters.
Mm-hmm.
So him not being in the lineup is obviously a good thing for the Bills this week. I wish him the best in dealing with that he's going through. But for the Bills in this matchup, it's nice to not have to see Calvin Ridley on the other side of the field. Kyle Pitts has been awesome as a rookie tight end, really kind of breaking through that, quote, glass ceiling of rookie tight end production. Mm-hmm. He's, you see it right there on the screen. He's got 949 receiving yards already as a rookie tight end, only the 1 touchdown. But, in 2 games, he's likely to clear 1,000 yards as a rookie tight end. So you definitely have to watch out for him. Patterson's been kind of a do-it-all guy. I think he's got over 500 yards rushing and 500 yards receiving this year, 11 total touchdowns, has done some kick return duty, but I think Avery Williams is really going to be that guy for them with Patterson so much part of the offense. And Russell Gage is a very nice player. Like he's been a good player for them this year. But the story is really going to be that offensive line for Atlanta. You would expect that Atlanta's going to have to throw the ball a lot in this game to hang with the Bills. They're the 2nd to last rushing offense in the NFL. Like you said, Mike Davis really hasn't been that guy. Patterson's kind of been the guy. Like you look at their stat lines and you're like, wow, Devin Singletary and Josh Allen are kind of outpacing Patterson and Mike Davis, which is funny because we always a lot of people complain about the Bills running game, but it's going to be that offensive line for Atlanta. They've invested a lot, like you said, in that line, but that's fine. They're just not there yet, and whether or not they pan out is still kind of to be determined. I don't think we can really make that determination yet, but they haven't been that great this year. Matt Ryan's been sacked. 32 times already this year, 6.0% sack rate. It's one of the highest sack rates he's had in his career. The last 4 years for him have been rough in that regard. And he's one of the least mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Like you think about the least mobile quarterbacks in the NFL and you're thinking like Tom Brady and Matt Ryan. Like those are the 2 guys that come to mind. So the one thing you'll say about Matt Ryan, like you mentioned, he's a veteran and he will stand in there and take a hit. He is not afraid to stand in there and take a hit and deliver the ball. So I don't think Matt Ryan's going to get flustered. The Bills have struggled recently to get home a little bit. Matt Ryan can do damage if you give him time, and he has the ability to read the field, but he's going to stand in there and take hits, and he's going to try to bring this team, to victory. they're 7-8 on the brink of being eliminated from the playoffs. So he's going to leave it out there. It could be his last ride here in Atlanta. So
Yeah.
That offensive line and Matt Ryan, to me, are going to be the stories today.
Yeah, I mean, Lone Wolf comes in and says, look at the Falcons' offensive line and the draft capital invested into it. I guess that shows how much of a crapshoot the draft can be. I think there's a number of factors that also dictate the performance at offensive line. Number one, Arthur Smith is a new head coach, and a lot of those guys were drafted before Arthur Smith when they ran more of a zone blocking scheme. So a lot of those offensive linemen, despite high draft capital, might not be 100% of a mesh or a fit with Arthur Smith. Again, I haven't watched enough Atlanta games to be able to tell you for sure whether I think that is the case or the scenario or not. And another thing too is when you don't have enough veterans to buffer an offensive line room, a lot of young guys, a lot of inexperienced guys, you see that the Miami Dolphins, they tend to struggle. So part of the reason why I think Atlanta is having trouble in the offensive line is because they didn't invest any free agent capital in offensive linemen and had some veterans in there to sort of buffer and protect some of those younger players. Like Jalen Mayfield shouldn't be starting this year.
Right.
We talked about that. Me and you talked about that. We love Jalen Mayfield. We had a second round grade on Jalen Mayfield, but we also understood that Jalen Mayfield might not be a year one starter. It might take 2 or 3 years to get that dude in the lineup because he was 19 years old. Like he was the Tremaine Edmonds of that draft. He was so young and so inexperienced. And now he's starting in a brand new position at left guard. And he played so few games at Michigan because of injuries and COVID. So a weird situation along that Atlanta offensive line. But I'll tell you what, someone in the comment section said he expects 4 sacks today. I don't expect any sacks today. I mean, you know that Matt Ryan's a veteran quarterback is going to have a quick release. I think that in the running game, Jerry Hughes, Greg Rousseau are probably going to be more concerned about setting the edge in the running game than they are going to be about getting at Matt Ryan. You have 2 guys in Cordarrelle Patterson and Kyle Pitts. I'm expecting a lot of counters because the Buffalo counters and cutbacks, because that's what the Buffalo Bills have struggled with. I'm expecting a lot of redirections. I'm expecting a lot of rolling out from Matt Ryan today, and I'm expecting a lot of play action. All of those things really affect your ability to sack the quarterback. And those are all the things that I'm expecting from this Atlanta Falcons offense today. Also a lot of 12 personnel with guys like Lee Smith staying in the block. So I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to be successful at getting to Matt Ryan today, but it also doesn't mean they're not going to be successful defensively, because if they can just keep everything in front of them and they can shut down the run game and they can limit the amount of chunk passing plays, it's going to look a lot like a lot of the Bills games that we've seen this year, like the Carolina game, where that defense really has the success and leaves, and keeps the other team from scoring a ton of points. So one last thing before we bring in our next guest, Ryan Sullivan, special teams. It's going to be Tyler Bass versus Young Hoo Koo, who's a pretty solid kicker there in Atlanta. It's Matt Hawk versus Thomas Morstead, the battle of just meh punters. And then our next guest's favorite Buffalo Bill, Marquez Stevenson for the Buffalo Bills, returning kicks and punts. Cordarrelle Patterson is the kick returner for the Atlanta Falcons. And our guy, draft guy, nickel corner, return specialist, Avery Williams, returning punts for the Atlanta Falcons. So always important to keep an eye on special teams. Hard to predict, who the studs and the surprises are going to be on special teams. We know we have a solid kicker. They have a solid kicker. The punting, the returning, that's all just a crapshoot. So we will leave it at that, and we will bring on our next guest here. Do we have a background? Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
sorry.
we do. Yeah.
I didn't notice. I didn't see it there. Our guest from the 585 report and the Buffalo Fanatics, the first ever, I think, call-in guest to the show.
Yeah.
If I do remember correctly.
Ryan
Sullivan on Twitter at SportsRock2. We did our first ever bringing people onto the show to talk, and you sent us an email like, hey, I would love to come on. So I think you were the first surprise guest we ever brought on the show. So another surprise here is Ryan Sullivan. How you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to this game. I think this is the best I've felt going into a game most of the year, and maybe that's a bad thing, but I don't know. I think it's like Kendall. I'm in a good headspace right now.
That's not a Marcus Stevenson jersey, is it?
No. It's Milano.
You got to take the 8s off, and you just got to rock it as a 5.
I have. Well, it's funny. So years ago, my second ever Bills jersey I had was a James Hardy jersey, believe it or not, because I thought he was going to be a stud. And the very next year, or maybe 2 years after that, they got Terrell Owens. So I have somewhere in my house, my dad didn't get rid of it, I have a taped over James Hardy jersey,
yes,
duct tape with Terrell Owens, with Owens written on the back.
I still remember to this day, I had a Drew Bledsoe, and I taped over at Parrish for Roscoe Parrish. And my dad like flipped out on me before I left for like a preseason Bills game. He was like, "Oh my God, that's so trashy. People are gonna judge you. Like you shouldn't put tape." I'm like, "Nah, dude, everyone does this. It's fine. It's fine."
Yes.
And this is how you stop yourself from giving too much money to the man, right? And feeding the NFL and feeding their pocketbooks. You just put tape over a jersey that you've already paid for. But all right, let's get into this thing. And the first thing we're going to do today is the Take Me Higher player of the game. Obviously, again, cannot play the audio clip. A lot of people have been coming at Creed in the comment sections, coming at Scott Stapp, talking about like, how could Creed do this? I can't believe them. What sellouts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Are they not letting you play? Did they come after you?
I need to correct something for the record. I've jokingly said that Creed sent us a C&D, a cease and desist. That's inaccurate. It's YouTube has software and they run it through live streams and it picks up certain things like music. Now, it doesn't pick up Tobias Funke yelling fire, but it does pick up music, and then it yells at you and tells you it's copyrighted, et cetera, and doesn't let you monetize the episode. So don't be mad at Creed. Don't be mad at Scott Stapp. Be mad at YouTube and the music industrial complex for not letting us just enjoy 13 seconds of Creed. That's all we ask. 13. We're not asking for the full song. We're not asking for half a song. We're just asking for like 10 to 13 seconds, and they can't even give us that. So unfortunately, the player of the game, Take Me Higher player of the game, we're going in again without a music introduction. But Ryan, who is your Take Me Higher player of the game this week against Falcons?
So I cheated a little bit, and I just said the interior offensive line. The Bills are coming off a game where they played the best offensive line they've played all year against arguably a top 3 defensive line. And whether it's Feliciano back out there, whether it's Bates, whoever it is, I don't know if anyone's tweeted out the warm-up sheet yet or anything.
Looking for it now. I'm trying to find it.
But they finally have some momentum. The offensive line finally had a damn good game, and if they can keep that momentum going into the playoffs, that's dangerous, right? That's the one weakness this offense has really had that's kind of derailed it. And if you get that unit right, there's not a whole lot you can do to stop this offense, as you saw on Sunday. So whenever this offensive line, and specifically inside, and specifically interior line, really specifically that left guard spot, if they can get their stuff together this week, then and keep it going, I think that's really what's going to take this team a lot higher.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Brendan P comes in. He says Knox will eat 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dave, who is your Take Me Higher player of the game?
Great setup from Brandon P there. You know, there's some pictures coming through of warm-ups. There's snow on the field. It'll be interesting to see what kind of traction the receivers get on some of these long developing routes. Like quick passing game could be important today. So I really like the middle of the field as an area for the Bills to attack today. And like you mentioned, setting up the Bills offense against the Falcons defense with Cole Beasley having a big day. I think Knox can have a big day today. He had the touchdown taken away from him last week, obviously. And it seems like he's due for one of those angry run yak type of plays today. Just bowling guys over in the snow just seems appropriate for Dawson Knox. And I think Dawson Knox wants to show Lee Smith on the other side of the field that he has taken the mantle and can do his own thing here for the Bills. So I like Dawson Knox to have a big day over the middle of the field today. He'll be my Take Me Higher player of the game because I expect that the Bills' quick passing game has kind of come into to form last couple of weeks, like you said, Steve. Allen finding that balance between taking his shots and taking what the defense gives him. So look for Knox to have a big day today.
If Dawson Knox gets 2 touchdowns today, or Stephon Diggs gets 2 touchdowns today, that would tie the single season record for touchdown catches by a Bill. They're both at 9 right now. So if either of them got 2, they would set the single season record over 16 games, or would tie the single season record over 16 games.
Spin coming in saying Cody Ford is warming up. Now I know every player warms up. That's that is one. But I don't know who to look for. I don't know whose Twitter handle to go and with Matt Perino on the COVID list. I don't know who to go to. Joe B usually after he does his 10 questions kind of shuts down. Nate Geary, I think, is doing a fantasy segment with our man Greg Tomsett right now. I don't know where to look. I don't even know what Twitter handle to look at. And Spin says he's trolling. Thank goodness. But I don't even know where to look to see if we can get an offensive line pregame. But I'll tell you who's not might take me. Oh, Sale. No, because Sale kind of shuts down because he's a sideline reporter and he does a lot of video stuff. He kind of shuts down before the game starts too, after the inactives. But who's not my player of the game is Tyrell Dodson. And I'll tell you why. Tyrell Dodson came in to the locker room today. He walked in from his car to the locker room shirtless. Well, I don't know if you guys saw this. Now, typically, football guy, typically that would make you a take me higher player of the game, or that would get you some kind of accolade. But I'll tell you what, those pecs aren't as nice as Devin Singletary's. So he is not my take me higher player of the game, because listen, if you're going to walk from your car to the locker room shirtless, and you know that there's that picture of Devin Singletary out there on the internet, you got to do some push-ups before you got to get out of your car. You got to rack up about 30 push-ups, get that chest nice and tight before you walk into that tunnel when you know the cameras are there waiting for you. So when you,
or at least oil up,
yeah, or oil up. Yeah. You know, Devin, I don't know if that was oil, sweat, a little mixture of both, but you can't know that Devin looks like that shirtless and know that pictures on the internet and walk the way you did into the locker room, Tyrell Dodson. So you are not my take me higher player of the game. I'm a pecs connoisseur. You might power rank songs and cereals. I power rank pecs. All right, that's what I do. Mostly because I'm jealous because I have none. My take me higher player of the game is Matt Milano. Speaking of pecs, Matt Milano. I'm going with Matt Milano. Cordarrelle Patterson. It's going to be Matt Milano say he's going to need to go sideline to sideline. I'm expecting a lot of those misdirections. I'm expecting a lot of those counters and those cutbacks, a lot of rollouts, things like that today. So I'm going with Matt Milano. He needs to be a wrap-up tackler. And I also think he's our best pass rush option. That A-gap blitz has been really effective for the Buffalo Bills. And Matt Milano has been really effective in running that A-gap blitz. So Matt Milano is going to be my take me higher player of the game. Walter Scales coming in saying, Judge, it's not fair. If that's the standard for everyone, nobody would go without a shirt. That's true. I just think the rest of society should. The rest of society should just never take the shirt off. I haven't taken my shirt off in 2 years. I just shower with a white tee on. Brendan P coming in says Judge loves three things. He loves Singletary, Singletary's pecs, 11 personnel. That might be my Twitter bio. I might change it to my Twitter bio. I love three things: Singletary's pecs, 11 personnel, and big fatties on the interior defensive line. But that brings us now, ladies and gentlemen, to our wild card player of the game.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
So I told Dave coming in that I had a certain wild card player of the game, but I needed a backup plan in case you stole it. Knowing you and who you are, but who's your wild card player of the game?
So Vernon Butler deactivated today for this guy, Eli Anaku. Did I take yours?
No, you didn't. Thank God.
So I noticed him. I've been noticing he hasn't put up a ton of stats. I don't know what his numbers are in the year, but every time he's out there, I notice him. He's big. I was sitting in the end zone at the Thanksgiving game, which I think was the first time he really got playing time on this team. And dude is big. Like, dude takes up space. He's not, I don't think he does anything particularly special, but he does his job well. Mm-hmm. And with him essentially taking Vernon Butler's job today, it looks like, I'm assuming he'll probably see some more snaps out there. And so I'm looking for him to do a good game. And, he's playing, a guy who's playing for a spot on either this team next year or a spot on a team next year. Cause guys are going to be looking, mm-hmm. This is the time of year where guys are going to be looking at tape to see who to bring on. So he's playing for a lot in this game and he'll have a chance to really show it. And I like what I've seen so far from him.
I think him and Brandon Bryant have a shot to make the 53-man roster next year because I think both of them have played well in their little spurts, and I think both of them could be a really solid fourth or fifth defensive tackle on this football team, depending on maybe some of the changes that we make this offseason. So I think you're spot on there, and I think that's a good call. Who are you going with, Dave? Who is your wild card player of the game?
Yeah, obviously I'm not going to take yours. You already told me who it's going to be. I think it's time. I think it's Dane Jackson season time today. I mean, we talked about the weapons that Atlanta has. Obviously, no Ridley. They've got Kyle Pitts, who's likely going to be covered by a combination of Poyer and Milano and a little bit of Edmonds. Cordarrelle Patterson's going to be probably a lot out of the backfield, I would assume. where he's going to play most of his snaps. Russell Gage is a guy that Matt Ryan's going to have to probably target a decent amount in this game. And I think Dane Jackson has a chance to make a big play today when Matt Ryan goes through his reads and maybe a guy like Pitts or Patterson's not available. Dane Jackson may be locked up with a guy like Russell Gage. And I think he has a chance to create a play, whether it's forcing a fumble, maybe getting a pick. I think he's been playing solidly. He's had his ups and downs, obviously, like we would have expected for a young player like that, kind of filling in, obviously. But I think it's time for him to make a play. Matt Ryan, as good of a quarterback as he's been throughout his career, he can make some questionable decisions at times. He does throw picks. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the league. He doesn't have the arm he used to have, and he's never really had the biggest arm. He throws a nice deep ball fine, but looking for a play out to the sideline, maybe he's a little slow on that, or maybe he has to get rid of it a little too quick because the pressure's coming up the middle. Dane Jackson could capitalize. So I like Dane to have a splash play somewhere today.
I like that pick. My pick, and first and foremost, I want to preface this by saying, if you guys are not following Ryan, make sure you're following him on Twitter if you are on that social media platform of choice. If you wanted to subject yourself to that social media platform, you can follow him on Twitter at SportsRock2. It's right there on the screen. I think the best rivalry in sports right now is Ryan Sullivan and Marquez Stevenson versus Brother Bill and Isaiah McKenzie. That is one of my favorite things to look at on social media week after week, is this back and forth between Brother Bill and Ryan over their love for Ryan, Marquez Stevenson, and for Brother Bill, Isaiah McKenzie. And I'll tell you what, Brother Bill took a little bit of a lead last week with Isaiah McKenzie's big day. So I'm gonna go with my wild card player of the week. Go with Marquez Stevenson.
Yeah,
I think he has a kick return or a punt return in this game. I'm not saying it's for a touchdown, but I think he breaks a big return of some sort. It could be a touchdown, or it could just be a giant field flipping play. I think he makes one play on special teams today where we all after the game were like, hey, remember that Marquez Stevenson kick return or that punt return? Whether it ends up in 7 or it's just a big gain, I think he pops a big one today on special teams for the Buffalo Bills. He looks like he's ready to break one. And Morstead was a punter that was signed in the middle of the season by the Falcons. He sort of just drifted around the league since leaving New Orleans. So who knows? Maybe Morstead leaves one hanging up there for Marquez Stevenson to take advantage of in today's game. So he's my wild card player of the game. He does look stiffer than McKenzie, but I feel like once he gets that straight line, I think he's got more straight line speed. And I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm waiting for him to make that one cut and have a lane. And once he gets that one cut and has a lane, doesn't have to be too shifty, east-west, he can go north-south. I think he can do some damage.
We've settled into a nice little spot. I think he's shown. We've both got half a dub on. He's developed into a nice little returner, especially for a guy who only returned 4 punts in his college career. He's starting to look a little bit more natural with that, and he's had a couple really nice kick returns. So I think we've settled into a nice spot where we were both kind of right. I'm happy to see McKenzie contributing on offense.
Couple more wild cards before we get into the next topic. We got Roman Bobek coming in saying Rousseau with the strip sack. Tommy Miller thinks that Saran Neal will get a forced fumble in coverage, which would be a nice 2 weeks after his tip led to the Micah Hyde interception last week. Dwayne thinks that Edmonds is going to get a huge sack early in the game and set the tone. So let's get into it now. One player on the Atlanta Falcons that we need to respect.
I pure, straight hate you. But God damn it, do I respect you.
Just thankful that YouTube hasn't shut that one down yet. I think when YouTube shuts that one down, I might just call it a career and retire from this racket. Ryan, who is your player from the Atlanta Falcons that needs to be respected for the Buffalo Bills to win this football game?
So I'm going to cheat again a little bit on this one. So you look at this roster, AJ Terrell's a good player. Grady Jarrett's a good player, but this is a roster that's really a lot greater than the sum of its parts. Patterson's a good player, right? But this roster is a lot better. There is a lot worse than what their record really is. And I think that's a tribute to this coaching staff. I know we disagreed last offseason, Judge. You didn't like the Arthur Smith hire. I thought it was
I've come around on it. I think he's doing a pretty good job.
I think I thought it was the best hire I still think it was the best hire of this coaching cycle. And I picked the coaching staff. I think this is a game where Arthur Smith is going to empty his bag of tricks. I think whether it's trick plays, end arounds, I think you're really going to see him, they're not playing for much. They're playing spoiler today. And I think we're going to see him really get weird in this game. And on the other side of the ball, Dean Pease is a guy he's kind of like his Leslie Frazier in a way that, he's going to empty his bag. He's a guy who can be a little bit unpredictable when he calls games. I wouldn't be surprised to see some cover zeros and see some just funky coverages and stuff like that. And Dean Pease has coached a lot of football, and he's not a bad football coach. So I think this Falcons coaching staff, which has this team playing a lot better than they are, I think is the players that I'm respecting. No, that's cheating again, but that's what that was my takeaway when I was looking at this roster.
First person to ever pick a coach for this segment, so I respect it. Richard Rush comes in and said Cordarrelle Patterson. Spin came in, said AJ Terrell. Mike Moo comes in and says Mike Davis. I'm with you. I mean, in my game prediction notes, I said that I think the Atlanta's gonna have a lot of sustained scoring drives because I do think that Arthur Smith is going to draw up a lot of misdirections, counters, rollouts, etc. And I think that Atlanta will move the ball down the field. They're still playing for a playoff spot there in the NFC, but they know that they're down so many dudes. They know the dogs that they are. I expect them to be aggressive on things like on fourth down. So I'm totally with you with that pick there. Dave, who are you going with?
I've been going back and forth between Pitts and Patterson. I'm going to go with Pitts just because the big body, and I think that he could cause the Bills a little bit of trouble. The Bills did a great job in shutting down Hunter Henry last week, was my guy you had to respect last week. But Kyle Pitts is a guy you really need to take out of the game. I think if you can live with Cordarrelle Patterson's going to get his touches, so don't let Pitts be a factor in this game. And I'll take it a step further on the Atlanta Falcons. I still don't think they're that good. I still don't think Arthur Smith is that good. If you look at their record, yes, they're 7-8, but if you look at the teams they've beaten the Giants, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Panthers, the Lions. Like I don't think they're that good. They've had some nice games, but they've also had some really, really bad games. They've gotten shut out by New England. They got blown out by Tampa Bay. They lost to the Panthers, like I mentioned. So to me, the jury's out on them. They have some nice players here and there, but this is a game that really they should have no business being in from start to finish. And I'll say that, like, they should have no business being in. So to me, Kyle Pitts is the guy that if you're the Bills and you don't want someone to beat you, don't let Kyle Pitts beat you. Cordarrelle Patterson's going to get his touches. He's going to get, his carries, his catches, whatever. But don't let Kyle Pitts beat you if you're the Bills.
Yeah, Richard Rush coming in, and then Ryan also sent us a private message here on our platform. Joe B is reporting that Rick Bates is starting today at left guard, so the old Ron Swanson fist pump right here in solidarity. Pumped for that. And I'll tell you what. So you went with the coaching staff, Ryan, Dave. You went with Kyle Pitts. I want to lean defense here, right? But I mentioned it when we were talking earlier. They have one really dominant player in the front, Grady Jarrett. They have one really dominant player in the middle, Deion Jones. And then they have one really dominant player in the secondary, AJ Terrell. And then everything else around it is kind of dog shit. Like, it's not that good, or it's really young and inexperienced, or it's really shallow because of COVID or injuries, et cetera, et cetera. This is a team with a lot of really good players, a few really good players, and then a lot of just like, wow, these guys are in the NFL. So to me, I'm going to skip over defensive players. You got to respect those three, but I think it's really easy to isolate those three and to neutralize those three. So I'm going to go back to the offense, and I'm going to go with the guy who I think could completely flip this game if asked to. And that is, and that is Cordarrelle Patterson. I just think he's just such an absolute playmaker. The combination of Cordarrelle Patterson, I'm even going to throw Matt Ryan in there with his veteran presence. This is a guy who can break off those big plays. We've seen that before, right? With this Bills defense, they shut you down. You average 2 yards a carry, you average 2 yards a carry, you average 2 yards a carry, bomb, 75 yards, touchdown. So you need to make sure that you contain Cordarrelle Patterson this game. You got to make sure you have a game plan for every single thing that Cordarrelle Patterson does. And if this Bills defense has a weakness other than seemingly these counters and stuff, it's wrapping up and it's tackling. And I know that, the Cover One guys on Wednesday brought the Atlanta sort of locked on guy and all the other different reporters. I'm blanking on their names. I apologize for
Eric Robinson, I think it was.
Eric Robinson, but it's his comment was like, they just give him the ball and let him do his thing. They don't scheme anything up. They don't do anything crazy. They just dump the ball off to him and let him do his thing. You got to tackle. When they dump the ball off to Cordarrelle Patterson, when they give Cordarrelle Patterson the ball 2-3 yards up the field, you got to be there and you got to wrap up a tackle. Don't let him break a tackle and get to the second level. So Cordarrelle Patterson to me is the one player that you really need to respect. And Rowan Boback comes in and says draft crush Dalen Hall, though. Yeah, a lot of draft crushes for this Atlanta Falcons team, but it doesn't mean that they're not youthful. That doesn't mean that they're not inexperienced. So the Buffalo Bills, I think, just their roster and the way they're playing right now is just so demonstrably better than the Atlanta Falcons that if we lose this football game, it's going to be a massive, massive, massive disappointment. Brendan P coming in says smash those likes and share the stream. I always appreciate it, Brendan. And if you want to, yes, smash those likes and share the stream. We would really appreciate it.
We've got that O-line based on
mhm.
I think Joe B reported it first. Dawkins, Bates, Morse, Williams, Brown left to right, which is what we were hoping for, I think. So it's good to see that.
All right. Next up, we got our hot take of the game.
Oh my God! We're having a fire sale. Oh, the burning! It burns me. Evacuate all the school children. Oh, me. This isn't a fever. Sing, Gray. Can't even see where the knob is.
All
You have such a
right,
great selection of videos.
Every year I try to work a new video into the. I still haven't. This is one of my favorite clips right here. I just still haven't found a good use for it yet.
Are we having fun yet?
I don't know. I don't know where to fit that in, but I want to fit it in. And if anyone has any suggestions for clips that we should use, feel free to shoot me a DM on Twitter if you think a clip or a pregame superlative would work. But what we got right now keeps us to a solid 45.
Maybe be something like something funny that happens in the game that's like unpredictable. Like not a hot take, but something funny. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, Ryan, what is your hot take for this game? Tommy Miller coming in saying he thinks Josh can have 2 rushing touchdowns today.
So last time I kind of made a prediction like this, it was the Jags game, but I'm feeling good. I'm knocking on
wood about everything I said about the Falcons roster. I love them all.
I am going over 1.5 Mitch Trubisky drives in this game. I think.
Ooh, that's spicy.
I think we see a couple. I think we see at least 2 Mitch Trubisky drives to end this game.
Ooh, oh boy, that is spicy. Speaking of spicy, Brendan P coming in saying Falcons have under 25 yards rushing. And David comes in and says, Anchorman, I'm in a glass case of emotion. That would be me today if Ryan Bates wasn't starting. What is your hot take for this game, Dave?
So my hot take is that it kind of goes along with my wildcard player, Dane Jackson, I think, is the Bills get 2 takeaways and I'll say 2 or more takeaways, but none of them are forced or taken away from by the safeties, Poyer or Hyde. They get it from someone else. So maybe it's 2 interceptions. It's either from like Dane or like maybe Milano gets a pick, but I'll say they get 2+ takeaways, not involving the stud safety duo of Poyer and Hyde. Comes from somewhere else.
Got Dwayne Ferris coming in. This is a real hot take. And I know he meant McKenzie, but this is a real hot take. Because he says Leos McKelvin's going to come out and have another 100-yard game today. So
that would be impressive.
Just messing with you there, Dave. I know he means McKenzie, obviously. Josh has 400 yards of total offense as DH. Evan came in and said Air Raid Hour gets nominated for an Emmy. That's his hot take. I actually got an email from something called the Razzies. They said we were nominated for something. Have you ever heard of the Razzies? Is that a good thing?
No, that's
shit. Fuck. Oh, anyway. My hot take for this game is I think that opposite of Dwayne here. I think Cole Beasley, whenever we count him out, he does something to surprise people. I'm going Cole Beasley, 10 plus catches, 100 plus yards today.
I like it.
I think Cole Beasley's going to come out fucking pissed off at a lot of people. Probably not deservedly so, but I think he loves being doubted. I think he loves people talking shit and people underestimating him and people not wanting him. And I think he's going to utilize that. And I think he's going to have 10 plus catches for 100 plus yards today, especially if they go into a lot of zone coverage today because of their lack of depth in the secondary. David R coming in saying Singletary goes for 150 plus yards today. That's a good one as well, especially if we get out to a nice lead, trying to milk the clock. They have a very shallow defensive line with guys like Davidson and Bullard out. So that might be something. Walter Scales, I like this one. Matt Hawk has a bounce back game and actually gets the punt. That might be that might be. I'd rather him not punt. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'd rather him not punt. But that leads us to our final superlative of the pregame, our game predictions.
Back to the future. Back to the future.
Back to the future. Back to the future. Back to the future. Back to the future.
Future. All right. So, Ryan, what is your game prediction? Paint a picture for us.
I just think that this is a game that Atlanta just doesn't have the horses. I know that we can't count any team out after you lose to a team like Jacksonville, but I think the difference between this and some other games earlier in the year, that we're not coming off a couple, kind of games. We're coming off really 2.5 consecutive games against spectacular defenses of really well-coached, well-executed offense. And maybe, Atlanta can in their first 20 plays can scheme up a touchdown drive or two, but they just don't have the guns to go punch for punch with this team. I think Bills, even in this weather, put up 40. And I think Atlanta maybe gets a touchdown late, but it's not even going to look close. I have 41-20 Buffalo.
Oh, wow. Dave, how about you? What are your predictions for this game?
Yeah, look, I mean, Atlanta's bottom 10 in points per game, 18.5 points per game. They're one of the worst first down offenses in the league per DVOA. I think they're 30th. They're not a heavily penalized team. They're actually quite a disciplined team. So I don't expect a ton of necessarily self-inflicted mistakes from Atlanta on a penalties front, but I do expect that the Bills defense should be able to take the ball away in this game. Atlanta, one of the worst turnover differential teams in the league. And like Ryan said, I just don't think they have the horses without Calvin Ridley and that rushing game for them, which has kind of been, if you want to call it, the bugaboo to the Bills defense in this sort of 2.5 game stretch where they played well. It has been on, giving up chunk plays on the ground. I don't really see that coming from a guy like Mike Davis today. Like maybe Patterson gets something here or there, but I just feel like this game sets up really well for the Bills on defense and on offense. Cause like Ryan said, Tampa Bay, Carolina, New England, 3 of the best defenses in the league right there. And now you get to go up against Atlanta team who is one of the worst in the league. So, and you're playing at home. Hopefully there's snow, but it doesn't look like there's going to be too much wind, which is great. So the Bills really should come out and dominate this game. I'd really like to see them kind of have that swagger back after the way they played against New England last week. So I think the Bills win this one going away a bit. I think it's going to be Bills 31, Falcons 17.
Nice. We got Tim Farrow coming in saying only 31 likes. Hit that like button. If you think the Buffalo Bills are going to win today, if you don't want to jinx it, if you want to sort of guarantee a Bills victory today, you got to smash that like button. That's all I'm going to tell you. It's just good karma if you smash that like button. Some predictions rolling in. Cascut says 38-17 Buffalo. Roman Bobak says 42-10. David R says 31-21 Bills. The trick plays and the urgencies get some surprising touchdowns for the Falcons, plus a lot of fourth downs. They go for it. Roman Bobak thinks he could smell a shutout. 36-10 says Tommy Miller. So some good predictions here. I'm going to go 50-14 says DH. Chris S says 31-17. I'm going to go with I'm going to go Bills 27, Falcons 17. So I think it's going to be tighter. I think the Falcons are going to beat the spread. I'll get into that in a second, why I think the game will be close. But all I'm going to say is this. If the Buffalo Bills lose this football game, they are not They are not who we thought they were. We've had this conversation multiple times on this show. Well, it shouldn't take losing to the Steelers to have to wake up. It shouldn't take losing to the Jaguars to have to wake up. It shouldn't take getting skull fucked by the Colts to wake up. Like, that's not something this team shouldn't need 6 different wake up calls all season. There's a chance where we could lose this game. It's an NFC game and then still make the playoffs. I'm not picking the Bills to win in the playoffs at all, period. I'm going to pick them to lose if they make the playoffs, if they lose this football game. Because if they lose this football game, they are not who we thought they were. There was a dialed in, there was a focused, there was a motivated Buffalo Bills team last week. And if they can't bring that same energy that they brought against the New England Patriots, if they needed to be that opponent, that coach, that stadium, that team, that spotlight, if that's what they need in order to be successful, in order to be motivated to be a good football team, this process is bullshit. So they need to come out here and they need to be just as motivated, just as focused, and just as dialed in against the Atlanta Falcons. I do think the weather will play a role today. Bills 27, Falcons 17. The weather keeps it close. The Bills will obviously score 3 touchdowns, kick 2 field goals, so they'll get plenty of offense. But I think Arthur Smith does dial up a solid offensive game plan where they drive the ball, maybe milk the clock a little bit, and they get some chunk plays. But at the end of the day, I think the Falcons roster is just too weak compared to the Buffalo Bills. They just have too many good players. The Bills are just too deep at a lot of positions where the Falcons are not, and the Buffalo Bills. The score might look close, 27-17, but I think the Buffalo Bills will still win this comfortably. Listen, I was a confident, arrogant, cocky son of a bitch heading into week 1. I was humbled. And I was a cocky, arrogant son of a bitch heading into the Jacksonville game. And I was humbled. So I ain't taking any of this shit for granted. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat all day. This team is probably going to be the COD on my death certificate because I think I aged 10 years after every Bills game.
There's no more games in hand, really, right? You have 2 games left. And when you lost to Jacksonville, you lost to other games, like you had plenty of games left in the season. Like you don't have that anymore. You have 2 games left in the season.
You got 2 games. You like I said, you got to bring that same focus, that same energy to the Atlanta Falcons at home than you did to the New England Patriots on the road. As we wrap up here, about just over 10 minutes until kickoff. Listen, these guys picked them to win big. I would pick them to win by 10.
31-17. I mean, that's not. I don't feel like that's unreasonable.
No, it's not.
I mean, that's Falcons covering the spread. Technically, they're
That's not cocky.
Favorite.
I might have money on the spread. That might have impacted my decision.
Ryan, tell the people where they can find you on social media and where they can find your content.
You can find me right there at Sports Rock on Twitter. Bills content, a lot of other nonsense. I've been feuding most of the morning with Dome Twitter. And then over at 585 Report, drops. We've been going back and forth. We've been doing live shows every other week. I don't know if we're going to go. So next week we'll drop on Wednesday. I don't know if we'll have a live show next Thursday. We're figuring that out. But it's because we miss you over there. Judge, thank you guys so much for having. Thank you guys so much for having me on. It's like
I appreciate it.
We miss you guys over there.
No, we miss you guys. We two weeks in a row. We've had you and Kendall, so we miss you guys. Might have to get Kyle next week just to piss Casey off. All right, man. Always appreciate it. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, we get this text from Terry Pagula after the game.
Terry just texted me to smile.
Hopefully we all get smiles after this game. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.